How is everybody? Great. Okay, so we are going to look at social studies a little differently now. We're going to do it through videos and online PDFs and some YouTube channels and different things like that. So this will help us cover the content, and I can kind of read it to you and go over it with you as we go. So we are going to start with this unit. The unit is called Monarchy versus Democracy. Like I said, I will read it. We'll do some questions and answers. We'll look at some vocabulary words. We'll watch some YouTube videos. We're going to do different things to make sure everybody understands this unit. But first lesson, we're going to start with vocabulary words. I want to make sure you know what these words are before we start. If you don't get it immediately, we're going to keep practicing it until you do get it. So no worries, okay? We are going to have some questions. So you're going to want to get a paper and pencil. You don't need this little worksheet. Paper and pencil is fine, and you can just write down your answers. As I'm going through this, if I'm going too fast, hit pause, write your answer down, and then you can hit play again. You do not have to rush. You have plenty of time. No hurry. Okay, so everybody should have hit pause to go get a paper and pencil, and you should be back and getting ready to start. Ready? So I'm going to read. I'd love to have you guys to read, but I can't hear you, so it's just going to be me. We're going to start up here with Sarah. Sarah says, "Hi, it's me. This week we're going to do a mini unit on the topic of monarchy versus democracy." Then Tony down here says, "Hi there, I'm Tony. Let's learn some vocabulary words to help us through these lessons." So we have our two characters who are going to kind of talk us through a lot of this stuff, and we're going to jump right in with our vocabulary words. Our first vocabulary word is history. You see it right here, history. I'm going to highlight the word I thought it was. Well, maybe I'm not. That's okay. History. What is history? History is the study of the past. Now, our big vocabulary bulletin board picture that if we had a bulletin board to hang it up on for everybody to look at every day would be this. History. History is the study of the past. We have our word, we have our definition, and we have our picture to help us remember. Pointing backward, so that means past. And it's a book, so it's study. So history is the study of the past. So everybody look at question number 1. What's history study? Does it study the past, the present, or the future? So on your paper, go ahead and write down number 1 and write down the answer. What does history study? The past, the present, or the future? So everybody got it? I'm sure you did. History studies the past. That's correct. So you should have written down number 1 and the word past. All right, let's go on. Look at the next one. Next vocabulary word. Monarchy. What is monarchy? That's a big word. A monarchy is a form of government where usually one person reigns. So one person rules. A king or a queen. That's typically one person. Not always. There's always going to be differences, but a monarchy is a form of government where one person, or king or queen, is in charge. Okay, so if we had our big bulletin board up behind us, we'd have this picture posted so everybody could see. Every day when they'd walk into class, they'd see this, so they would remember these words. Monarchy is our word. A monarchy is a form of government where usually one person reigns or rules. and it's a king or queen. So we have our definition and we have our picture of our king and queen. That is a monarchy. So if we go back and look at question number 2, and it says, who is the leader in a monarchy? You're going to want to write down the number 2 on your paper, and you're going to tell me who is the leader. Is it the president, a king or queen, or the people? Now, if you don't remember, look back up here at this definition. A monarchy is a form of government where usually one person reigns, a king or queen. So who's the leader? The president, a king or queen, or the people? You're right. It's a king or queen. It's usually one person, but it is a king or queen. They rule. That is the monarchy. Has everybody got it? Remember, if you need time, hit pause. Write it down. Let's go ahead and look at our next word. Democracy. What's a democracy? Does anybody know? Well, the definition's here, so let me just read it. A democracy is a form of government elected by the people. A democracy is a form of government elected by the people. The people is kind of the big word. So if we had our bulletin board up again, we'd have this picture on display. So when you walked in, you could see this picture every day. It has our word, our definition, and our picture to help remind us. Democracy. A democracy is a form of government elected by the people. So whenever a new person needs to be put into our government, it is us, the people, that elect them there. That is a democracy. So if we come back and look at question number 3, who picks the leader in a democracy? Is it a king, a queen, or the people? You're right. It's the people. That's what we said just a moment ago, that a democracy is a form of government elected by the people, right here. So number 3, you should have written down the word people. Let's move on. Now, we're going to look at this one because he's really kind of important, and we're going to talk about him later. But this is a picture of King Louis, and then we have an X, a 1, and a V. So this means the 14th. Okay? King Louis the 14th. King Louis the 14th, also known as the Sun King, was a monarch who reigned as king in France from the year 1643 until his death in 1715. That's a pretty long time. So King Louis was also called the Sun King. He was a monarch. And remember back here we said a monarchy is a government where usually one person reigns and it's a king or a queen. Right here's an example. King Louis reigned, the ruler, in France from 1643 until his death in 1715. Now, I'm pretty sure I have another picture, I do, of King Louis. So we would have this picture of King Louis posted on the bulletin board to help us keep up and remember who this guy is. So let's go back and look. Question number 4, it asks us, which country did King Louis XIV reign? I can't remember. Look right back up here in your text. We've talked about this before. Sometimes you just have to go back to your text to get the information. So which country did King Louis XIV reign? France, Great Britain, or Germany? Determine your answer and write it down. Yes. King Louis reigned in France. That's what you should have written for number 4. It says it right here. King Louis was a monarch who reigned as king in France. So you should have written down the word France. That was the country. Is everybody ready? Remember, if not, you can always hit pause. Take your time. Think this through. Let's go ahead with our next person. This is on Peter the Great. Peter the Great? Who's Peter the Great? Peter the Great was a Russian czar in the 17th century. So here's a picture of Peter. He was a Russian czar, which is still, he's a ruler, okay? And if we go back and we were in our classroom, I would have this picture right here posted on my bulletin board. So when you would come in, you would see a picture of Peter the Great to help you remember. Peter the Great was a Russian czar in the 17th century. So question number 5 is asking us, which country did Peter the Great rule? Spain, Germany, or Russia? If you don't remember, look back up here in your text. See if you can find it. Good job. Peter the Great was a czar in the 17th century for Russia. So everybody got that written down? If you need to push pause, push pause. And we're going to move on. Divine rights is our next term. Divine rights. Anybody know what that means? Divine rights mean that kings base their right to rule directly from God and are not accountable to the people. So these kings say, I am king, I can rule because I received that right from God and I'm not accountable to any of you people. I am the ruler, I received that right straight from God and I don't have to be accountable for anyone. So those are divine rights. Now I think I may have another picture right here. I do. I have our phrase, divine right, the definition, and the picture to help us remember it. And this would be, again, posted on our bulletin board so we could see it every day to help us remember this. Divine rights mean that kings base their right to rule directly from God and are not accountable to the people. So number 6 asks, who do these kings believe gave them the right to rule? Is it the people, God, or nobody? Who do the kings believe gave them the rights to rule? If you can't remember, look right back here at your text. You should have said God. That's who the kings believe gave them the right to rule. They believe they have these divine rights. Those are the vocabulary words that will show up throughout this unit. We'll talk about them as we go through. I just want to make sure everybody has been introduced to them. And just to go a little bit farther, we are going to look at 2 short video clips. One is like 3 minutes, and maybe they're both 3 minutes, and then answer a question on it. So make sure you're watching this video clip. I'm just going to pull it up right here and show you right here. Okay? I hope. And where might it be? Here is the first video clip.
On September 9th, 2015, Queen Elizabeth II surpassed her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria, to become the longest-running British monarch in history. But although the Queen is quite popular in the United Kingdom, about 1 in 6 Britons feel that the monarchy should be completely abolished. So why do we still have monarchies? Well, the United Kingdom isn't the only country to retain a royal family. In fact, there are around 40 nations worldwide with monarchs, with various titles like king, queen, sultan, and emir. Many of these countries are leftover British colonies who still acknowledge the authority of Queen Elizabeth II. Several are still ruled through absolute monarchies. Nations like Swaziland and Qatar have hereditary rulers who exert full control over legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. One of the most successful absolute monarchies is in Vatican City, which is governed by the Pope. The rest are primarily in the Middle East and Africa. These nations tend to be plagued by human rights abuses because there aren't sufficient checks on the monarch's supreme power. But in most nations with royal families, like Sweden or Japan, monarch power is minimal, and they have few, if any, official state duties. They retain mostly symbolic power and exist as the face of the country for ceremonial functions. Known as the head of state, they differ from the head of government, who would be the actual political leader of their governments. In the United Kingdom, one expert summed up the Queen's duties as the right to be consulted, the right to encourage, and the right to warn. The Queen's political powers do include appointing the Prime Minister and declaring war or peace. However, traditionally, the monarch's decisions in the UK have aligned with the constitutional governments. If they were ever to disagree, these laws could change to remove the monarch's authority. For example, in 2008, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg refused to sign a euthanasia bill into law, although it had been approved by Parliament. Luxembourg's parliament then promptly amended the constitution so that bills no longer needed the signature of the Grand Duke. Today, one of the most important royal duties is with philanthropy. Queen Elizabeth II is said to have done more for charity than any other monarch in history, helping to raise more than $1 billion in aid. Overall, British royalty is said to contribute to more than 3,000 charities worldwide. Royal families also play a role in preserving a nation's culture and history. The British crown jewels and a number of castles and palaces are owned by the state, but they are used by royalty to keep the United Kingdom's historical traditions alive. Monarchies may be a thing of the past, but royal families are invaluable for cultural preservation, diplomacy, and philanthropy. Some British citizens, however, think that monarchy is outdated. Should Britain still have a king or a queen? Learn more in Secret Daily's video here.
There are a minority of people in the UK who think that the nation would be better off abolishing the monarchy altogether. These Republicans argue that the real cost of the monarchy is around 4 times as much. That's once you factor in security costs, royal visits, and public relations.
Thanks for watching TestTube News, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe to keep up with our new videos every day.
Okay, so that was a little information on monarchies. So let's go ahead and look at question number 7. It says there are no more monarchies in today's world. Is that true or false? Think of the video we just watched. Okay, that question is false. It showed us different monarchies around the world, so we know that question is false. Let's go ahead and look at this next short video on democracies, and we have a question, and then we'll be finished for now. So let's check out this short video on democracies.
The word democracy comes from the Greek words of demos, which means people, and kratos, which means power or rule. So democracy basically means the rule of the people. Democracy first started as a direct democracy in Greek cities, notably ancient Athens, where people came together to speak about their concerns and opinions in front of rulers of the city-state, and directly voted on new rules and laws. Here is considered as the birthplace of democracy. For the very first time, decisions were made by the people instead of rulers. But sadly, the ancient Greeks did not see all people equally. Slaves, women, children, and the people who did not have a land weren't allowed to vote. This is what we call a flawed democracy today. After the Greeks lost their power and influence in the 1st century AD, their early forms of democracy were also fading away until the Magna Carta was signed in 1215, which prevented the King of England to do whatever he wanted and said that even the king had to follow the country's rules and laws which were written in the Constitution. Today, Most democracies are indirect or representative, which means that you can't vote for a new law yourself, but you can vote for people who then become lawmakers and present your interests. But democracy isn't just about voting. It's about everything to protect the best interests of the people, no matter what is their race, gender, political opinion, or religion. These interests can be human rights, quality of life, infrastructure, and many more. Modern democracies divide power into three different branches: the legislative, the people who make the law; the executive, the people who make sure that you obey the law; and the judiciary, who judge you if you commit a crime. These three are independent and work following the process, checks and balances, which means all the work must be clear and fair. And very important, the people who have power also must follow the law and not exceed their authority. In addition, a democratic government must work in a way that reflects the wish, feeling, desire, and values of the society that it governs. This is also known as the general will, which is a concept developed by the famous Swiss philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. One of the problems of democratic voting is that the biggest groups of people always have the most power, and that's why a good democracy also has laws to protect the rights of its smaller and weaker groups. A democracy where the majority chooses to separate, expel, or injure its minority is not a functioning democracy. So, what do you think now about democracy? Winston Churchill once said, "Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time." Do you agree?
All right. So that is the video on democracy. So let's check out this question. Who makes decisions in a democracy? Now think back to your video. Think back to our definitions. Who makes these decisions? Is it kings, queens, or the people? Yep, it's the people. That's the difference. So that is a quick rundown on the vocabulary words we're going to be talking about. A little video to help you understand monarchies and democracy a little bit better. And when we meet again, we'll move right on into our next lesson, which is going to be on monarchies. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you really learned something. Bye, guys.